Today, I would like to discuss the future of mega rares in old school RuneScape. To some, they are a real problem and feel harmful to the game's longevity, but to others, they are the greatest thing that has ever been added. There are few moments in old school RuneScape that are more exciting than seeing a mega rare.
Please! Timo! Fucking Timo! Ah! Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my god!
A Twisted Bow, Scythe, or Tumican Shadow is not just another upgrade. For a main account, it can completely rebuild the bank. For an Iron, it can finish one of the longest grinds in the game. And for everyone else, in a group raid, it could either mean a memorable payout from a split, or at least creates an opportunity to say GZ while quietly calculating how dry they are. Mega rares give raids a long-term aspiration. They are incredibly rare, incredibly valuable, and powerful enough to change how an account approaches the game.
Guys, this is a different game now.
But old school is now approaching a difficult question. We already have a defining mega rare for each major combat style. Range has the T-Bow, Magic has the Shadow, and Melee has a Scythe, so where do we go from here? Not because mega rares are necessarily good or bad for the game, but because designing the next one will be much harder than designing the first three. The original three had a fairly clear space to occupy, being the ultimate powerhouse at the top of their respective styles. They are not just normal weapons with slightly larger numbers. Each one feels immensely more powerful than anything that comes before it, as well as having a defining mechanic impacting that power. The Bow scales against enemies with high magic stat. The Shadow multiplies the offensive bonuses provided by the player's magic equipment, and the Scythe attacks large enemies several times based on their size and scales very well with strength bonus. Those mechanics give each weapon an identity, as well as allowing it to scale continually as the game and gear both evolve with future updates. But the three obvious positions at the top of the combat triangle are now occupied. Any future mega rare has to enter a space where another mega rare already exists. That means it must be powerful enough to feel worthy of its rarity without being so broadly powerful that it makes the previous items feel obsolete. The upcoming Tazar Ket Breaker demonstrates exactly how difficult this can be. The Breaker is intended to become the premier crush weapon. Its mechanic calculates multiple possible damage rolls based on partly the target's melee defenses, then selects the highest result. It receives more rolls when the enemy's stab and slash defenses are higher than its crush, meaning that it reaches full potential against enemies where it's clearly weak to crush. Conceptually, I think that's interesting. It gives the weapon an actual identity rather than making it a scythe with a different attack style. But the weapon's development has shown the balancing problem with adding a second melee mega rare. When the Breaker was originally proposed, player calculations showed it outperforming the Scythe by a huge amount in many situations, sometimes by around 30 to 50%. It did not just dominate crush weak enemies, it could compete or beat the Scythe in places where the Scythe was supposed to be the preferred option. At that point, the Breaker was not really expanding melee progression, it was replacing part of it. Why spend an enormous amount of money on the Scythe when the new weapon from the newest raid performs better across most of the same content? Jagex responded with its first balancing proposal by reducing the Breaker's strength and narrowing its conditions in which it received all of its damage rolls. That protected the Scythe, but it created the opposite concern. Now the Breaker appeared to be weaker than the Scythe almost everywhere except for very small selection of specifically crush weak enemies. That may be balanced, but does it feel like a defining mega rare from the new raid? A niche is useful because it allows different weapons to coexist, but when that niche becomes too narrow, an item can begin feeling less like a mega rare and more like an extremely expensive solution to a question only a few bosses were asking. Jagex has continued adjusting it, and I have faith that they can find a reasonable middle ground. The healthiest version may be a genuine side grade to the Scythe, clearly better against large crush weak enemies, while the Scythe remains better in neutral situations and against slash weak targets. But simply finding that middle ground has already required several versions of the weapon. Too powerful, it devalues the Scythe. Too restricted, it struggles to feel mega. That is the exact problem every future mega rare will face. Old school RuneScape has preserved different weapons before by giving them a broad but an understandable niche. We can see an example of this, albeit on a much smaller example than a mega rare, with the Dragon Hunter lance and its power against dragons. The category includes enough relevant content such as Vorkath, Olm, and Rune Dragons, just to name a few. The weapon feels valuable without needing to be the strongest melee weapon everywhere. The Bofa and the Twisted Bow also manage to coexist. The Bofa is accurate and consistent across a huge range of content. The Twisted Bow can become dramatically stronger, but only when the enemy stats activate its scaling effect. Even if the Twisted Bow is now used in the majority of the places, the Bofa still has its place, and most likely has gotten plenty of use in just about every ranged encounter for hundreds of hours and thousands of kills before finally getting the coveted Twisted Bow. The player has expanded their equipment options rather than simply deleting the previous one. The difficulty is applying that same philosophy but on a much larger scale to a Mega Rare. A relatively niche, affordable weapon like the Bofa can spend most of its life in the bank and still feel worthwhile when the moment arrives. But a Mega Rare carries a much different expectation. If it is going to be extremely rare from a major raid and worth more than 1 billion coins, players expect it to matter frequently. Its niche must be narrow enough to protect older equipment, but broad enough to justify its rarity and value. That's an incredibly small target to aim for. Another idea I'm not sure would be viable, but I would like to bring up for the sake of discussion: does a Mega Rare always have to be a weapon? So far, the pattern the old school has followed with the previous 3 and now the proposed raids for Mega Rares are all built around is giving us a new weapon to chase. And maybe that's the right approach. Weapons are exciting, and they are easy to build encounters around, and when you finally get one, the upgrade power is immediately noticeable. But if raids continue for years, and with my already growing concern for the Mega Rare design problem, I wonder if there could be room for a possible Mega Rare armor piece, shield, or even jewelry. Could a Mega Rare expand beyond weapons without creating something that simply replaces several existing upgrades all at once? And more importantly, would players even want the rarest item from the raid to be something other than a weapon? I do not have the answer to that, but as the number of Mega Rares continue to grow, I think it's at least worth questioning whether Mega Rare has to mean new best in slot weapons, or whether there is room for Jagex to eventually explore something different. If you have any ideas about this, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear some discussion about this. Mega Rares provide something genuinely valuable to old school RuneScape. They keep raids exciting long after players have obtained the more common rewards. They create enormous long-term goals, and receiving one is one of the few moments where years of slow account progression can suddenly leap forward. But every new Mega Rare also occupies some of the limited reward space available at the top of the game. The original 3 Mega Rares do a great job at feeling amazing for anyone that wields them.
Holy, we are slamming this guy.
They are slow, hard-hitting weapons that feel good and intuitive to use, but for future Mega Rares, if its mechanic is too simple, it risks replacing an older item. If it's too complicated, players may need a flowchart and DPS calcs for every boss to figure out whether the rarest weapon in the game is better than the other rarest weapon in the game. The Breaker is not proof that another melee Mega Rare cannot work. It may end up becoming an excellent crush-based side grade to the Scythe, but its development is giving us a glimpse of how difficult future reward design is becoming. Once range, mage, slash, and crush all have defining Mega Rares, what comes next? A stab weapon, a special attack item, a new range or mage weapon, or another weapon with increasingly specific conditions in which it is allowed to be incredible. I do not think old school needs to stop creating Mega Rares, but I also do not think that the game can add them forever without considering what each one takes away from the design space of the next. The challenge is no longer simply creating an item powerful enough to feel like a Mega Rare, it is also creating the 4th, 5th, and 6th Mega Rares while ensuring that the first 3 still feel mega. I do not have the answers on how Jagex should continue designing Mega Rares, however, I just want to encourage more discussion on this topic within the community so that when the time arrives to discuss what may come in Raid 5, 6, or 7, we will be more ready to give our thoughts and give helpful advice on what should enter the game that we all love, just so we can keep the game healthy and fun for years to come. And of course, if you like the videos, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content where we go beyond the gear, beyond the grind, exploring design, philosophy, and progression that makes old school RuneScape unique.